This across to my other senior colleagues who are joining us. Harish Nair is with us, legal editor. We also have with us Bhavtosh Singh, who's also with us. Let me come to you, Harish. You were inside the courtroom. Very interesting to see the response of Alka Lamba there, saying that Mr. Singhvi was performing his professional duties and that this has nothing to do with his political career. But nevertheless, take us through briefly the arguments that were put forth by Abhishek Manu Singhvi and the response coming in from the bench. It was all over in about 10 to 12 minutes, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, that's right, Madhav. Remember, even at 10:30, when the Abhishek Manu Singhvi had in fact mentioned that the Sisodia has moved Supreme Court and he seeks relief, he challenges the arrest and also not only the arrest, also the order from the Rouse Avenue Court granting 5 days custody to CBI, and he has even at that juncture. The Chief Justice had said that prima facie we are not impressed with this petition because under Article 32 you cannot directly come to the Supreme Court. Rather, there are other remedies available to you like going to the High Court. This comment was made in the morning itself, but however, Abhishek Singhvi insisted, and after that the Supreme Court had kept this matter at 3:50 for hearing. In fact, Singhvi tried to impress the court, saying that the main allegation is that he has been non-cooperative and evasive on questions.
Okay, stay with us, Harish. We have with Mr. Amit Malviya of the BJP, in fact, the social media, the IT department, in fact, joining us at the moment. Amit Malviya, your response to what the Supreme Court has observed, no relief granted here to Manish Sisodia at the Supreme Court. They will now have to knock on the doors of the High Court.
Look, the Supreme Court has been very clear in not meddling with the case here, but it is getting evidently clear that Manish Sisodia will have to face law. He has been sent to CBI custody. He will be interrogated. Clearly, there is huge amount of evidence that suggests that Manish Sisodia was the kingpin of this entire excise policy that was ruled out in Delhi. It was meant to benefit a few private wholesalers. There was cartelization, processes were not followed, key authorities were bypassed, and this entire policy was put in motion. It has caused huge loss to the Delhi exchequer and has benefited some private players. Manish Sisodia was solely responsible for doing it. He was accused number 1 in the CBI's list. The CBI has taken its time to investigate the matter. Clearly, they have trail of money moving around. There are players involved from southern India, leaders like Kavita Rao, the daughter of KCR. The Telangana Chief Minister has been questioned. There are other private players of southern India who are involved in this. This trail goes all the way to Punjab, where there is demand for an investigation in the liquor policy being put in there. So it's a big nexus operating here. There are several parties, including the Aam Aadmi Party, the Telangana Rashtra Samiti, and their top leaders involved in this entire collusion. Naturally, the CBI has done its work from what it seems. Sisodia has been on the edge. He has destroyed several phones, SIM cards in an attempt to erase any trail. Now, all of this is coming home to roost. And perhaps the Supreme Court, having looked at the matter, thought it was not appropriate for them to interfere in the particular proceedings. We welcome that. The law is taking its course, the agencies are doing their job, and I'm sure this entire rhetoric that the Aam Aadmi Party indulges in all the time is going to be exposed. They're the most corrupt, nefarious party in the country today. They're dangerous for the social fabric of this country, and of course, the kind of corruption that they have unleashed is of a completely different proposition. It's perhaps time that they're exposed.
Right. Amit Malviya, one of the arguments that we've seen in the court that has been made by Manish Sisodia's lawyers, apart from the fact that, that perhaps his statements were not suitable to the investigating agencies, etc., is the fact that they allege, the Aam Aadmi Party also says, that the then LG had signed off on this particular order. So they say that, how can they then be blamed for this particular policy when the LG himself had certain suggestions to make which were incorporated?
Look, it is not for me to get into debating the merits of the case. This media trial is what the Aam Aadmi Party wants because it helps them to muddy water. If the Aam Aadmi Party has evidences and proof, they should go to the court and present it to them. Let's not forget that similar arguments were made by the Aam Aadmi Party in case of Satyendra Jain. Arvind Kejriwal came out himself and said, I have looked at all documents and there is no evidence of wrongdoing. Exactly the same thing he is now said about Sisodia. Both of them are now in jail, and Manish Sisodia will spend perhaps far more time than Satyendra has spent so far. So clearly it's not looking good either for Manish Sisodia, Jain, or for that matter even Arvind Kejriwal, who at the end of the day, as the Chief Minister of the Delhi government, is responsible for the mess that goes around in his government and in his cabinet.
All right, Amit Pandya, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your thoughts on this. In fact, we'll take this across to other guests as well in just a few minutes. In fact, we have Bhavtosh, who continues to be with us as well. Bhavtosh, the larger question is this, that, even arguments of the Vinod Dua case, for instance, that was cited. All right, Charu Pragya also joining us as well. We'll just go across to her in a quick minute. Bhavtosh, the Vinod Dua case was cited. The Chief Justice specifically mentioned that since this is a prevention of corruption case, the circumstances were different and therefore they are not inclined to intervene. How do we see this playing out? Because unless there is some fresh arguments from what had been taken up by the lawyers of Mr. Manish Sisodia before the trial court, it's very difficult, of course, to predict which way a court will decide. But certainly at this point of time, the BJP at least saying that this shows as to how serious the charges against this individual concerned, Manish Sisodia, who was then the excise minister, are.
Madhav, politics aside, as far as the investigation goes, remember the complainant in this case is the Lieutenant Governor who wrote a letter to the Ministry of Home Affairs, after which the Home Ministry allowed the CBI to carry out its investigation. The CBI is carrying out investigation now for over 7 months. It's not that CBI abruptly came and arrested Manish Sisodia. The first charge sheet in this case was filed in November, and it's only now that Mr. Sisodia has been arrested, and Sisodia was produced in the court of Special Judge M.K. Nagpal, who went through all the records and then granted 5-day custody of Mr. Sisodia. Now, even in the court order, it has been said that certain answers of Mr. Sisodia has not been satisfactory. CBI had shared the case diary with the court, and the court had gone through the case diary for at least 90 minutes. Now, what we have come to know is that there are certain aspects of this case which Mr. Sisodia did not answer correctly, and that is the reason why he is now in the custody of CBI. Now, the matter will obviously
Okay, stay with us, Bhavtosh, because we have a reaction coming in from Ajay Makan of the Congress.
मैं समझता हूं कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बिल्कुल सही निर्णय लिया है, और जो भी लोग मनीष सिसोदिया से जरा से भी हमदर्दी रख रहे हैं, उन सभी लोगों से मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि वो इस बात को समझ लें कि ये सीधे के सीधे ओपन एंड शट भ्रष्टाचार का मामला है, और ये बहुत बड़ा दिल्ली के अंदर शराब का, लिकर का स्कैम हुआ है। इसको उस तरीके से देखना चाहिए। हम लोगों को ये बताना चाहते हैं, केजरीवाल और आम आदमी पार्टी ये कह रहे हैं कि इनके साथ में बहुत बेइंसाफी हो रही है। क्या बेइंसाफी हो रही है इनके साथ में? इन्होंने खुद ने 4 सितंबर 2020 को मनीष सिसोदिया ने, इनकी सरकार ने एक कमेटी बनाई कि कमेटी बताए कि एक्साइज पॉलिसी में क्या चेंज होने चाहिए। कमेटी ने जो रिपोर्ट दी ठीक उसका उल्टा कर दिया कि ताकि भ्रष्टाचार हो सके। कमेटी ने ये कहा कि आप होलसेल की, जो भी इसकी होलसेल का ट्रेड है, उसको सरकार अपने हाथ में ले ले, जैसे कर्नाटक के अंदर होता है। इन्होंने उसकी जगह होलसेल का सरकार अपने पास में ले ले, इसकी जगह 6% पहले कमीशन होता था, उसको बढ़ा करके 12% कमीशन कर दिया। और ये पूरी तरीके से एस्टैब्लिश हो चुका है कि उस 12% के अंदर 6% वापस इन लोगों ने ले लिया। तो जब करप्शन इन्होंने किया, 6% होलसेल को बढ़ा करके कमीशन को 12% कर दिया। इनकी अपनी ही द्वारा कमेटी बनाई हुई कमेटी ने कहा कि इसको निजीकरण मत करिए, इसको सरकार के खुद के अपने हाथ में लेना चाहिए। तो ये करप्शन नहीं है तो क्या है? और वो पैसा कम से कम 100 करोड़ का मनी ट्रेल मिल गया, जो कि पैसा इन्होंने गोवा के चुनाव में कांग्रेस के खिलाफ में लड़ा। तो जो कांग्रेस के तमाम नेता हैं, मैं उनसे बताना चाहूंगा कि ये पैसा कांग्रेस के खिलाफ में आम आदमी पार्टी ने इस्तेमाल किया। इस चीज को समझें। ये पैसा देश विरोधी लोगों के साथ में मिल करके उनकी मदद करने के लिए आम आदमी पार्टी ने खर्च किया। इस चीज को ये लोग सब।
Right, that's Ajay Makan of the Congress, one of those who initially raised this issue. Our report.
Taking ground, I'm Siddharth Talia. We continue our coverage of the order that's been delivered on the part of the Supreme Court denying any immediate relief to the Delhi Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Manish Sisodia. The court has asked him to exercise Section 482 of the CRPC and the powers under that to approach the High Courts instead of approaching the Supreme Court directly. Saurabh Bharadwaj of the AAP is now reacting to the Supreme Court order.
तो ये जो केंद्र सरकार की जो नीति है, इसकी वजह से ही हमारी इकोनॉमी डाउन जा रही है, इसकी वजह से ही इन्वेस्टर जो है यहाँ पे आने से डर रहा है। तो ये बात जो है प्रधानमंत्री जी को समझनी चाहिए। ठीक है जी।
Go across to Ms. Charu Pragya of the BJP. Ms. Pragya, how do you respond to what the court has now said specifically with regards to Mr. Sisodia? Even though it's not gone into the merits of the allegations against him, it's asked him to approach the higher courts instead.
It just shows the understanding of Aam Aadmi Party and how they have made a mockery of the court. The fact is they are not looking for relief. They are only looking to create more drama, to make more of a media trial and try and keep shifting the goalpost as they have been doing for a very long time. If they were intent on solving this and taking the righteous route, they would have begun by answering the CBI. They would have begun by explaining why is it that draft copies of this excise policy was distributed to the near and dear ones of Manish Sisodia. They would have begun by explaining to us if the number of shops increase, if the amount of sale of liquor goes up by huge amounts, why is it that Delhi government, the exchequer, is suffering a loss? Why is it that 37% decline in the revenue which used to come to the government has been registered in the last couple of months before the policy was pulled back? He will explain why he was using dozens of phones, why 1.38 crore worth of digital evidence was destroyed. Now these are hard questions and we need hard answers, and Aam Aadmi Party will do well to just sit down and address these one by one. See, people are very smart. CBI, of course, they know what they are doing, but even the people of Delhi, the citizens of Delhi are very smart. When we ask about Sharab, they cannot talk about schools. Please tell me what is the connection. In fact, I suggest we should stop calling him the education minister altogether. Let's just call him the Sharab Mantri, the excise Mantri. That's about it. Let's focus on this, get some answers, and make sure that in the days to come, no party can siphon off money like this to fund their own political campaigns in other states.
Okay, let me take this across to Nilashish as well as Harish, who are joining us with all the updates from the Supreme Court. Nilashish, coming to you first, the triple test that you spoke of, and that was Mr. Singhvi's defense of Mr. Sisodia in court while seeking relief from the Supreme Court, that appears to not have cut ice on the part of the bench that was hearing this matter.
Absolutely, Siddharth, as we were discussing, the triple test that was invoked by Abhishek Manu Singhvi, which talked about flight risk of influencing witnesses and also in terms of not cooperating. Now, all these aspects were heard by the court in a very short-lived hearing, but the question always was whether after a special court had in fact ordered custodial interrogation of Manish Sisodia in the interest of fair trial, fair investigation in this case, whether after that the Supreme Court could actually interfere at this stage with the investigation and order anything beyond that. Was there so much arbitrariness that such a plea could hold water? And that clearly was not the opinion of the Supreme Court. They said they would not interfere, and they suggested that there is an efficacious alternative that is available. They should knock on the doors of the High Court and see what happens there. And also, very tellingly, the court was also of the opinion that if there is anything that happens in Delhi, just because the Supreme Court is in Delhi, you cannot break hierarchy and rush to the Supreme Court at all times. So, of course, a setback for Manish Sisodia. Now, what we're learning is that it is very possible that Manish Sisodia will now knock on the doors of the Delhi High Court, though the petition is not filed yet. It is being readied, we believe, and we could expect a petition in the High Court in the next day or two, and a similar situation in terms of an urgent mentioning before the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court, maybe in a day or two, with regard to the relief that Manish Sisodia seeks. But from the Supreme Court, there has been no sort of relief for Manish Sisodia at this point.
Let me take this across to Harish as well, who was, of course, monitoring the developments in the Supreme Court. Harish, there were two precedents that had also been cited by Abhishek Manu Singhvi. One was, of course, the Pawan Khera case, where Pawan Khera was able to approach the Supreme Court directly for relief, wanting to club the FIRs that had been filed against him over allegedly derogatory remarks made against Prime Minister Modi. The other instance that was cited by Mr. Singhvi was the Vinod Dua case, but the Supreme Court, of course, not willing to take these precedents on board at this stage of the judicial proceedings.
Yes, that's right, Siddharth. These were the two precedents cited by Sisodia's lawyer Abhishek Mani Singhvi, but the Supreme Court was not inclined to entertain any of these arguments and said that there is efficacious alternative remedy available for Sisodia like the High Court, and after that only Supreme Court will entertain his petition. In fact, when Abhishek Mani Singhvi cited the Pawan Khera case, Chief Justice Chandrachud said that we entertained because it was a matter involving several FIRs filed against him in several states. There was an issue of clubbing of FIRs involved, but in this case, it's not there. And also cited Vinod Dua case. On this, Chief Justice said that was some special relief given during the peak of the COVID time to a senior citizen.
Right, so for the time being, a big setback to Mr. Sisodia, who will now have to approach the High Court on the directions of the Supreme Court. And like Nilashish said, that is something that his lawyers are planning to do. I'd urge Ms. Pragya to stay with us, and also Nilashish as well as Harish will come back after the short break.